in terms of decisions that the Trump administration will have to take is on the social media app TikTok. Now, Trump has in fact gone on to say that there will be no ban on TikTok, in a way that he is most likely to give it an extension to decide further what to do with TikTok, whether or not to stay with the ban or not. But also at the same time, he mentioned that the US government would like to have 50% ownership or stakes in TikTok if it has to operate in the United States. Listen to what he had to say.
As of today, TikTok is back. But I said we need to save TikTok because we're talking about a tremendous... Who in this audience goes with TikTok? Many? Yeah, very popular. And frankly, we have no choice. We have to save it. A lot of jobs. We don't want to give our business to China. We don't want to give our business to other people.
Right. And among the many campaign promises that Donald Trump has made, one of them is also about the impact that he's going to have in terms of some of the big geopolitical issues. And he's already said that he's going to end the Russia-Ukraine war even before, in fact, actually taking oath of office. But that, of course, hasn't happened yet. But let's take a look at what we can expect in the Trump era as far as some of these big geopolitical issues are concerned.
Left the building.
We can now project the winner of the presidential race. Donald Trump wins the presidency.
What started off as unlikely, impossible, is now reality.
As Donald Trump returns to the White House, the world braces itself for a seismic shift in global security.
America great again.
His style of high-stakes diplomacy is back, and it's already rattling the international stage. Trump's approach is as blunt as ever.
And I will never, ever let you down.
On January 7th, he warned Israel's Netanyahu.
All hell will break out in the Middle East.
All hell will break loose if hostages aren't freed in Gaza. The result, a shaky peace deal, brokered by Joe Biden, but pushed forward by Trump's iron fist. But this is only the beginning. From Greenland to the Panama Canal, Trump's claims of restoring American dominance are creating waves. With Marco Rubio as Secretary of State, expect hawkish policies aimed at China's growing influence in the region. Beijing may have its sights on Latin America, but Trump is hell-bent on keeping them at bay. But it's Russia that's the real wild card. Trump has promised a peace deal to end the war in Ukraine. Will he deliver? A deal could free up US resources, but will it divide the West further? A showdown with China looms, but this time, Trump may be willing to negotiate. China's growing presence in the Americas could be Trump's next battlefield. His administration has already signaled it will ramp up tariffs, political pressure, and confrontations to push Beijing out of critical trade routes, especially in the Panama Canal. And Europe's security? Well, it looks like Trump's cutting back on commitments. He's demanding NATO allies pay their fair share. After all, Washington foots nearly 70% of NATO's bill. But West Asia could see Trump scaling back as well, focusing more on economic pressure and less on boots on the ground. Trump's return to power promises a world that is more transactional and less ideological. For better or worse, global security is now a high-stakes poker game, and Donald Trump holds all the chips. NDTV Bureau Report.
And let's also listen in to what Donald Trump had to say about other important issues like the Middle East conflict, and also about the fact that there will be certain decisions that he's likely to take as soon as taking oath as far as immigration is concerned.
The invasion of our borders will have come to a halt, and all the illegal border trespassers will in some form or another be on their way back home. All of this in the Middle East in less than 3 months without being president. We've achieved more without being president than they've achieved in 4 years with being president.
Right, and Harshvi Pant, Vice President of ORF, joins me on the show right now. Mr. Pant, we are just a few hours to go from Trump being sworn in as the 47th US President. Now, as far as the Indian government is concerned, how sharply do you think this is going to be different for us, the second term of Donald Trump, compared to what we saw in the first term, as far as India-US ties are concerned?
See, I think broadly, India-US ties will continue the trajectory that they have pursued across different administrations ever since George W. Bush. We have seen different presidents come, different parties come to power in the US, and all of them have built a relationship with India which has been based on the strategic logic of this engagement. Now, the question, I think, of course, with Mr. Trump is that nothing is certain, and he bears his unpredictability and the leverage that it gives him and the US on his sleeves. So I think commenting anything at this juncture would be too early. But if the past has been anything to go by, I don't think India-US ties would be affected negatively in most domains. There are certainly going to be issues where India will have to rethink its approach. But I think broadly, this is a relationship that might remain insulated given what we have seen so far and given what we have heard so far.
Right. Mr. Pant, we also know that the biggest concern possibly for the Indian government at this point in time could be about trade relations. Dr. S. Jaishankar is in the US. He is going to attend the inauguration ceremony today. What do you think India's diplomatic strategy should be to come out of this in a win-win situation, both from the perspective of the fact that Donald Trump is going to have protectionist policies this time around? His motto clearly is to have America first stand as far as trade relations are concerned, tariffs are concerned. So what should be the first few steps that India should take or brace itself for as far as this very important aspect is concerned?
See, on trade and economy, we are going to see tariffs. We are going to see a more protectionist US, and we are going to see a Trump administration that will work according to a very different set of priorities compared to, say, Biden administration. Although one must admit that Biden administration was also pursuing a lot of the policies that were protectionist and were following up on Trump 1.0. So in a sense, America as a whole has become protectionist across domains. But with Mr. Trump, of course, given that he thinks the transactional nature of engagement is very important, India will have to see what perhaps India can make out of Mr. Trump's policies. And India will have to be open to negotiations and open to a dialogue in a way that perhaps in some cases in the past India could have avoided. That is not going to happen under Trump administration. So the more India focuses on the structural logic of Indo-US engagement, which is that, look, India continues to be a very important partner of the US in the Indo-Pacific. And one of the things that we are witnessing, of course, is that the first major meeting that is going to happen after Mr. Trump's inauguration is going to be the Quad Foreign Ministers meeting tomorrow. So that again is a signal that for Trump, Quad is important, Indo-Pacific is important, and India should make that case of India's centrality in the Indo-Pacific, and that perhaps will give India some leverage in trade and economic negotiations as well.
Right. Mr. Pant, since you mentioned Quad, we know that Chinese Vice President is going to be at this inauguration ceremony. That's what China has indicated, that he will be attending the event today. How do you think India should view this development?
I think like almost all countries, we would also be watching it very carefully in terms of what it means, because we know that Mr. Trump has had a very, very aggressive China policy in his first term. He virtually single-handedly changed the nature of discourse on China in the West, not simply in the US. We know that his campaign, even in his second campaign, for example, was built around China. We have just heard his Secretary of State nominee, Marco Rubio, deposing before the US and making comments about China, very strong comments about China and how America will have to deal with China. So we know that there is a larger trend line in the US about China, but we also know that Mr. Trump has often expressed his admiration for Xi Jinping, and he has also said that he's willing to make a grand bargain with the Chinese president. So I think, like much of the rest of the world, we will continue to observe from India what happens in that regard. But primarily, I think this is a relationship that will continue to have lots of tensions and lots of geopolitical, conflict embedded in it. So India will have to find a space for itself, whatever happens between these two countries. And we have in the past also dealt with, America and China both talking to each other, engaging with each other. But India's relationship with the US has found a logic of its own, which I would assume will also continue under Trump, whether he reaches out to China or whether he achieves a grand bargain with China.
Right. Harsh Pant, Vice President of ORF, thank you so much for joining us on the show. Now, External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar has said that the inauguration of US President Donald Trump, which he is going to be present for, could have profound consequences for the global order, spelling out some of the challenges and opportunities India could face over the next 4 years. The incoming Trump administration could impact India particularly when it comes to trade and immigration rules.